visit prisoners. We have several prisoners at Luzira, Chigo, Chitalia, who are being held there, not because they're being prosecuted, but because they are being persecuted. We have interacted with Dr. Kiza Besigye, Haji Obed Lutale, the team of the Bobby Youngs. There's several of them, you know, there's those in Chitalia, Machete, Yasin, Kalanzi Sheriff, and several others. The thing about these individuals, they were sent to jail by the General Court Martial. The General Court Martial, on 31st January of this year, the Supreme Court said you have got no jurisdiction over civilians. In fact, the General Court Martial is not meant to be a court. It's meant to be a disciplinary kind of entity for serving officers, and not a court of law. What we have been bothered about all of this while is, why are these people still being held in jail? And yet the Supreme Court said the General Court Martial has got no authority and jurisdiction over them, but they're still being held here on the orders of the General Court Martial, which is ultra-vires. Some of the files have since been transferred to civilian courts, Dr. Kiza Besigye, Haji Obed Lutale, and even for them, while their files were transferred to civilian courts, there's still a pooling, back and forth for them to be granted bail. The other day, the High Court judge said, well, yes, you qualify for bail, you've got the right sureties and so on and so forth. However, we shall still keep you in jail. Because when you go, you're going to interfere with the, the processes and all of that. And then there's all of these others whose files have not been transferred. The Bobby Youngs, Machete, Kalanzi, and a plethora of others whose files have not been transferred to the civilian courts. And we are saying, why? We have raised this matter in Parliament severally. The most recent time, Honorable Norbert Mao came out to say, well, we are working on it and so on. Obviously, Mao seems to have colluded with the state to keep these people in jail, because that's what his statement was saying, to show that we are still working on it. It's over 3 months. What exactly are you working on? Because these files, you're meant to transfer them. He was saying, well, they're still investigating. You have held these people for over 4 years. A number of them have been in jail for over 4 years. What exactly are you investigating that you've not investigated for 4 years? If you had any evidence, surely 4 years later, why have you not adduced that evidence anywhere? These people are still very strong on their conviction that, one, they are political prisoners. They're in jail because of their political beliefs, all of them. They're not in jail because they committed any offense. Otherwise, some kind of evidence should have been adduced, but none has been adduced to date. And they are demanding for their freedom. They are wondering why they're still being held. Yet the Supreme Court said the General Court Martial that sent them to jail has got no jurisdiction over them. We continue to demand. Honorable Norbert Mao, you're the contact person, you're the minister in charge. You're the one who brought a statement which was a very, in my view, shallow statement. It had no content at all. What we want to see is either release these people, free them. Free them. Or if you have anything on them, take it to the civilian courts and then we can follow up from there. The other matters of concern, you see, there are people who are being held here on some interesting cases. Offending the first family, including General Museveni, his son, Muhoozi, and others. The likes of Madubala and others who are being held in jail because apparently on social media they offended the first family. I don't know how that makes sense, because the person who does a lot of offending on social media is a one Muhoozi Kainerugaba. You are holding people saying they are offending Muhoozi Kainerugaba, but on a daily basis, especially in the middle of the night at a particular time when he's in, I don't know what state. He goes on Twitter, abuses whoever he wants to abuse, threatens to kill others and so on. Those people are saying, if indeed they committed an offense and they offended the first family, Muhoozi should be in jail too, should be with them. The Madubalas, Lucky Choice and others. You know, all those TikTokers who have been held in jail because apparently they offended the first family. They're saying this does not make sense to us. If indeed we said words that offended the first family. Muhoozi has offended so many people in this country. He has threatened to kill so many people in this country. He should be in jail with them. The other matter of concern, prisons across the country have got 79,000 inmates. 37,000 of those are on remand. The biggest quandary about this is the holding capacity of all the prisons in Uganda is 22,000. But 79,000 are the ones who are being held in the various prisons across the country. Meaning that the prisons across the country are full to capacity with an excess of 57,000 people. They're meant to have a capacity of 22,000, but they've got 79,000. And that's why people sleep back to back. So it's easy for disease to spread and many other habits, as you have heard, and so on. And of course, the general discomfort, because just because somebody is in jail, either because they have been convicted or they are on remand, that does not mean that they cease to become human beings. The congestion in prisons across the country is problematic. The prisoners have told us, as they have mentioned severally, it is a very precarious situation. You cannot have more than 3 times the capacity of people who are meant to be in jail. That's the situation that we have. Of course, the prisons authorities have come to Parliament a number of times to say, let's increase the budget so that we build more prisons across the country. I think that that's not the solution ultimately. That's not to say we should not, beef up the facilities that we have. Even a number of them, you can see they need a bit of a touch here and there. But I think more importantly, the courts of law have got to move. 37,000 people that are on remand, a number of them keep asking for bail again and again. Why are you holding them on bail and yet you can try them when they are coming from home? Why are their matters not being concluded by especially the courts of law? And then of course we have these political prisoners who people are in jail for 4 years, 5 years. Why? Evidence has not been adduced and all of that. So we think that this is an injustice. Just because somebody, even for the convicts, it does not mean that because you have been convicted of an offense, your rights should be stripped away from you. So this is another matter of concern. We hope that the Chief Justice and our courts of judicature will take this as a very serious matter. We cannot have 79,000 people occupying space meant for 22,000 people. It is unacceptable. It is inhuman. We have got to remedy it. Of course, the other issue that was especially emphasized by Dr. Kizza Besigye. We visited several people, but we also got time to interact with Dr. Kizza Besigye and Hajo Bed Lutale. One of his concerns is that why are suspects being treated in similar manner like convicts? Because a convict, you have been tried and you have been sentenced. Maybe you appeal, but even when you appeal, you're not a convict because now the court process is still ongoing. But convicts are those who were sentenced and they are serving their sentences. Suspects are those who are on remand. They are simply being kept here as they keep being taken for trial. And he's saying it is not right that suspects be treated like convicts. They cannot very easily interact with all of the people they would want to interact with. They've got to sit on the other end, talk to them on phone and so on. Of course, for us, we said, but look, we are these people's leaders. We've got to listen to them, connect with them, see the state in which they are, so that we can, talk about all of that afterwards. Yeah, so we were able to meet with them, shake their hands and so on. But that does not happen for their relatives, their family, and so on. So that is a concern that we want to follow up on as well.